Welcome to the People Chronicles. I'm Jackie Hoffman. We are joined today with David Yuengling. Thanks for coming down and joining us from Schuylkill County.
Hi, Jackie.
It's a very familiar name, Yuengling, and we are going to learn a little bit about Yuengling ice cream today, and you're going to start things off with the question that everyone waits for. What is it that you want our listeners and viewers to learn from your story today?
I think the first thing that I want people to learn is that you're never too old to do something new. I spent 30 years in the computer industry, and at the last minute just kind of decided to go ahead and do this.
I like how you say the last minute. There has to be a lot of thinking about what it is that you're going to do and where these thoughts came from and how things got initiated. So we're going to take it from, I learned earlier that Yuengling ice cream stopped being produced in 1985. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're going to start a little bit from where you were in 1985 at the young age of early 20s and what your direction was and why you decided to eventually do what you're doing.
In 1985, I had just graduated from college. I had the opportunity to take over the family business, the ice cream business back then. But I had a degree in computer science and wanted to pursue that. It was a relatively new field at that time. So that's what I wanted to get into. And I did that for 30 years. And for about the last 5 years or so, it's getting more advanced. It moves much more quickly. It requires a whole lot of education. To get decent jobs, you have to travel a lot. And I was spending way too much time away from home, away from my family. So I just opted at this point to do something different. To get back to how that all started, my partner in this is a gentleman by the name of Rob Borat. About 2 years ago, he emailed me, and he and I knew of each other, but didn't know each other. We're about 10 years apart in difference. He's also from Pottsville. So he sent me an email and said, "Have you ever thought about starting up the ice cream business again?" And at that point, I really hadn't thought about it. I mean, I put some thought into it maybe a couple years earlier, but at that time the economy wasn't very good and it wasn't really a good idea. So when I got his email, I met with him, we talked about it for a while, and then we agreed that we would research it. So we spent about a year and a half researching it, talking to the owner of Libby's Dairy, who happens to be my next door neighbor, which kind of made it easy. A couple of industry experts, banks and things like that, just to kind of get an idea of, we kind of went through everything methodically too. Who's going to make it? How are we going to distribute it? What stores do we want to be in? What geographic area do we want to go to? That kind of thing, And we worked it all out on paper first to make sure that it seemed to be, at least on paper, a viable project or business. And at some point, we just looked at each other and said, I guess we're going to pull the trigger and go ahead and do it.
This is it.
This is it.
You're so laid back with the way, the different steps that you describe of how it worked itself out, and things just seemed to fall into place the way they were supposed to, more or less. Or were there detours in all of this?
So far, everything, to my surprise, has gone pretty much according to plan.
So do you kind of think that it's one of those meant-to-be things?
I do. Somehow or another, I think, my father passed away in 2012, and he had an idea that I was thinking about doing this, but he didn't know I was going to go ahead and do this. And I think if he were alive today, he would have tried to talk me out of it.
Really?
I really think he would have.
Now let's talk about your family. Brothers, sisters, are there other people that will eventually be involved in this, or do you think that maybe they had an idea of wanting to do something like this?
When we first started out and started doing the research, the first people we talked to were my brother and my two sisters. I have an older brother and two older sisters. And none of them wanted to get involved. They all had things that they were doing, and one of my sisters lives in New Jersey, so just too far for her. My other sister owns a restaurant, and my brother's been involved in banking for years. So they just had no interest in it at this point.
And what do you think Rob Borad's, general interest was in bringing it back? What was it that sparked him that really wanted to get in contact with you?
Well, there's probably a couple of reasons, but I think the main reason that he wanted to get into this was because he really liked the ice cream.
And from research and hearing what people are saying, you're having nothing but a positive response.
Yeah, going back and looking at all the feedback we're getting from people who remember the ice cream from 30 years ago, there's a lot more people than I actually thought there were. I figured, most of them are my age or older, but there's a huge interest in it, and I think a lot of that has to do with the other side of the family too.
Right.
So, but that makes it just even better.
Now, when you say the other side of the family, that's probably a question that I should have started out with, because the Yuengling name is so very well known wherever you go. But what is the relationship from the Yuengling ice cream to Yuengling beer?
Okay. The current owner of the brewery is my second cousin. His father and my grandfather were brothers. So when the Yuengling's ice cream was started in 1920, it would have been my great-grandfather, it would have been his grandfather. So at that point, my great-grandfather, Frank Yuengling, was the owner of the brewery. Prohibition hit. They needed some other way to generate revenue besides, making near beer. So they got into the ice cream business. And for about 10 years, Frank ran both businesses. In 1935, my grandfather took over the ice cream business from my great-grandfather, and my side of the family, basically my father ran and grandfather ran it until 1985. In 1935, they became two separate companies. So that's where the split comes.
This is a movie in the making. I see it now. And where was Yuengling ice cream located in comparison to the Yuengling brewery?
Well, originally the plant was built at 5th and Mahantungo Streets in Pottsville, which is directly across the street from the brewery.
Okay. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to find out exactly what you started out with, and that was how, as you age, you decide that it's never too late to follow a dream. And I know that, when you reach or you say that you're at your midlife crisis, you're ready for a change. So we're going to go back and find out a little bit more about what it is that you're going to do and how you can share this dream with other people that are listening right now who may want to follow their dream, and they have the brakes on when we come back with the People Chronicles and Dave Yuengling.